one of our eminent speaker today. He is none other than Shri Ravi Shankar Behera, Senior Social Development Advisor and Consultant, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. If I will speak about him, he is an independent freelancer, Senior Social Development Consultant, worked in development cooperation and humanitarian aid sectors since last 25 years. He possesses a technical BSc Forestry degree from IIMT Bhubaneswar and a master degree from National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management, Hyderabad. Extensive experience on managing large-scale development and applied research projects, undertaken baseline studies, pre-assessment studies, feasibility studies for INGOs and back donors, undertaken project evaluations of donors like Mennonite, Central Committee, Lutheran World Service India Trust, World Renew, BTAST, Read for the World EED, etc. Thematic areas of work include climate, smart, regenerative agriculture, food security, sustainable livelihoods, nutrition, natural resources, management including forest, rights and governance issues, health, education, community-based disaster risk reduction, WAFH, social protection, gender and child-centered programming, poses a good understanding of development issues, including environment, energy, sustainable agriculture, natural resource management, and climate change issues. Community-based disaster reductions, which consists of development schemes and programs in India and South Asia, experienced in providing, designing, and execution of development support and action research projects on education and skill building, natural resource management and climate change projects, skilled in project cycle management, documentation reporting, result-based management, RPM documentation and reporting. These strengths areas are program designing, implementation, capacity building, working with government and NGOs, policy and advocacy, and grant management. Experienced in listening effectively with policymakers and senior bureaucrats at the national level and engage with local government authorities and a rural community. Experienced in institutional fundraising from bilateral, multilaterals, UN agencies, CSR foundations, and high net worth individuals. Headed the Institutional Partnership, Branding and Fundraising Unit, Aid It Action, South Asia, worked as a trainer and a mentor for grassroots voluntary organizations, worked with bilaterals like CEDA, Embassy of Sweden, GIZ, international NGOs, and national NGOs, including Practical Action, REDR India, Site Savers, Action and Aid India, Dan Church Aid, South Asia, Aid at Action, South Asia, and UNESCO. Worked with the Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India, and designed the technical guidelines and rollout of our urban mission. Worked with social research consulting firms like Taro Leading Edge, NRMC, undertaken a scooping study in Odisha on agriculture for small to and marginal farmers in an era of climate change, with recommendations on the multiple entry points to support sustainable climate, resilient, and smallholder agriculture. Experienced in managing European Commission, PMZ supported projects and assignments in the area of natural resource management. Child rights, food security, nutrition, and many more were his experience in this area. Beside all this aspect, he had even if provided technical assistance as national consultant, lead trainer, Hand in Hand India for development of 5 technical handbooks in agriculture and allied sectors under the project Skill Development and Employability, supported by National Skill Development Council, NSDC.
Okay, thank you all. In fact, I'll be speaking today on the human-animal conflict, which is on the rise.
Can you just switch on your camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll be speaking today on the human-animal conflict, which is actually rising in most parts of South Asia. And in this, I will be taking the example of the Asian elephants, which is actually creating a lot of issues and news both within the country as well as in my province in Odisha. And there is a very close link between environment degradation, deforestation, and animal movements, and agriculture and human society. So in fact, the balance is actually affected, which has led to a lot of conflicts now, and in some cases also loss of life on both sides. In the process, many elephants are also being killed, and also elephants are also killing human beings. So it's both ways. And this human-animal conflict is on the rise, especially in the last 15 years, when we see a lot of economic activities happening because of the so-called development projects of the government, which includes mining and industrial development and many other economic activities. So because of this rising human population also, and amoral anthropogenic pressures on the forest habitats, we see there is a lot of things which has impacted the well-being of both humans and animals. And from this example of these elephants, we see them actually creating new kinds of disturbances in the natural habitats as well as in the corridors, the elephant corridors. So now, according to this elephant census in India, recent survey in 2017, the country has a total of about 27,312 wild elephants, which is about 55% of the wild elephants present in the Asian continent. And the elephant range is spread over about 65,814 square kilometers of forest, and it covers 29 elephant reserves in 14 states and 10 landscapes in the country. Now, the long-term survival of a large-bodied, far-ranging animal such as the elephant can be ensured only through landscape-level maintaining of their viable population along with suitable habitats. How large these landscapes should be is open to discussion, but it is clear from various studies of the elephant's home range, population dynamics, and elephant-human conflicts that this should be of the order of several hundreds of square kilometers. At a minimum, in the short term, and certainly several thousands of square kilometers to ensure the long-term viability of the elephant population and reduced conflicts. Fortunately, in India, we have few areas where the above conditions are still met. The problem is that even here, the options of keeping these landscapes without disintegrating further are fast disappearing now. As the country moves into the high gear of economic growth, the symbols of development like roads, railway lines, dams and canals, pipelines, mines, expansion of settlements, and cultivation threaten to permanently rip apart the tattered habitat fabric. In many places, the linkages or corridors among elephants' ranges hang by a thread. The elephant corridor is the connecting linkage through which the elephant can move freely and maintain its gene flow between two or more habitats. Now, of the 88 elephant corridors identified in 2005 by Wildlife Trust of India and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, 12 are in northwestern, 20 in central, 14 in northern West Bengal, 22 in northeastern, and 20 in the southern part of India. But according to the WTI report published in the year 2017, the elephant corridor number has increased to 101, and 7 of the previously declared corridors were excluded due to the immobility of elephants in those routes from the last decade. In India, only 24% of the corridor area is covered by complete forest patches. On the regional basis, 65% of the corridor are under forest cover in southern India, whereas 90% of the corridors are jointly under forest cover, agriculture, and settlements in central India. And only 10% are covered by forest patch in that central region. About 28.5% of corridors in India are found to be 1 kilometer or less in length, whereas in southern India, it is 65%. Fragmentation of elephant habitat is extreme in West Bengal, followed by northwestern India, northeastern India, and central India, respectively. As per the WTI report published in 2005 and 2017, the number of elephant corridors was found to have increased due to the fragmentation of surviving corridors. The fragmentation of corridors is mainly due to changes in land use, such as roads, railway tracks, mining, conversion of forest land into agricultural lands, and human settlements. The protection of the heritage animal of India with mitigation of human and elephant conflict is the major topic nowadays. Weak regulation of ecotourism, mushroom farms, agricultural fields in the corridors, human settlements, etc., block the path of the elephant and degrade the habitat, resulting in human-elephant conflicts. As a result of the growing human population, the demand for land use, dependency on forests for fuel wood, timber, grazing of livestock, monoculture plantations like tea, eucalyptus, etc., degrade the habitats. Additionally, the entry of invasive species like Lantana camera and Parthenium species becomes dominant over other local species, reducing the foraging ability of elephants in a given area. As elephants are forced to range farther and farther afield, they enter into conflict with humans. As humans encroach on forest areas, planting nutritious crops near forest lands, they attract elephants. It has been seen that 40% of elephant reserves are vulnerable and are not coming under the protected areas. Elephant corridors too face legal protection issues throughout their range. One has to understand that protecting elephant habitats and corridors would be the solution to overcome the human-elephant conflict issues in most places. Despite the role of elephants as weak regulation of ecotourism and giving the strictest level of protection under the law, the elephant reserves as well as linking corridors should be protected legally under specific rules and regulations. In the recent past, the verification of elephant corridors has been carried out by mapping using GIS technology, which made it too easy to find out corridors throughout the country. Now, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has decided to conduct the first scientific estimation of elephants along with tigers and leopards in 2022. This will ensure the individual identification, monitoring, age detection, and nutritional status of the elephants. Now, of the 101 corridors identified, 6 have been secured and 6 more are currently in the process of being secured through an amalgam of the 4 models. Now, there is a need to upscale. Elephant corridors are now becoming a national policy initiative in India. Out of all corridors across the country having been documented, 6 of these have already been secured. This may be a good beginning in the area of rising tide of human-elephant conflict, and no time is to be lost to expand this strategy. To secure all the 101 elephant corridors, the effort of local populations alongside the government and corporate sectors has to be synchronized and upgraded in the centralized vision of conserving elephants. Now, what could be the strategic directions to ensure all this? A few points which we know and from our experiences across different forests across the world and by the different forest departments. The forest departments in India also have taken lessons from the national as well as international learnings, and they have tried to design strategies to implement these. For example, in Central and East India, 90% of corridors are passing the human settlement and agriculture field. It can be rewilded by formulating a plan of nature recovery scheme as done by the English government in England. In this scheme, the farmers are paid to rebuild their land. In India, though formulating the scheme, the corridor path would be enriched with native plant and grass species to avoid elephant and human conflicts. Most of the human deaths are caused due to disturbing by humans during the movement of elephants in the vicinity of villages or agricultural field, when the elephants aggressively resort to and cause destructions. Right. In such conflicts, villagers should cooperate with forest officials instead of crowding to drive away the elephants and follow the prescribed protocols. For the protection of the existing corridors, the railway tracks and national highways that are crossed, the routes should have underpasses or overpasses constructed according to the land type so that the elephants can easily move in spite of the existing traffic. The underpass or overpasses should be of natural look and designed as suitable for the elephants as well as other wild animals. Speed limits of the vehicles should be strictly enforced in the corridors. The corridor paths should be enriched with native plants of trees, shrubs, and herbs, as well as water facilities in the water bodies during the dry periods used by elephants where the fragmentation of the corridors has happened. From different research reports, it was found that about 28 types of minerals are essential to elephants. When the elephants are unable to find nutritious food in the existing habitat, they start moving to another patch in search of good food. Basically, the movement of the elephants is according to the quality of food and availability of water in the area they inhabit. The elephant reserve and corridors should ensure the availability of rich and nutritious food suitable to elephants. The elephants can then obtain their food from the natural habitat. The habitat status in the elephant-rich areas have to be monitored and regenerated by the forest department. This can minimize or eradicate the movement of elephants to the nearby agricultural fields. It is studied that elephants have found a quick response to change in forage type and availability of water. Mostly, the elephants occupy lower elevations in the vegetation regeneration period, but tend to move to the higher altitudes evergreen forest after sensing the availability of vegetation. The human encroachment and agricultural fields nearby elephants' habitats are mainly used by the elephant in the dry season and during the harvesting seasons. The mining areas should be specifically planned to save the elephant habitats as well as the elephant corridors. The forest patches are majorly affected in these areas. The elephant movement patches should be protected and regenerated with suitable plant species for the free movement of the elephants from one habitat to other. The active mining areas should be enclosed with solar fencing boundaries to avoid the demise of elephants. Now, there are various modern gadgets which help in preventing this human-elephant conflict. And the use of information technology can be useful, which has made rapid advances now. And programs can be made to detect elephant movements and warn the people well in advance using apps that monitor the location of elephants, especially on busy highways and railway tracks, to prevent collisions with vehicles. Use of drones to monitor the movement of elephant herds and warning issues so people can move out of their way. Similarly, drones can also be used to monitor the movement of elephants near the railway tracks so that the drivers are warned well in advance to slow down the trains. Railway drivers need to be trained on use of modern gadgets and information systems to detect and take corrective actions to prevent collision with elephants in the elephant corridors. Underground cables are important. It is often seen that the elephants die due to electrocution by high voltage electric wires in the areas inhabited them when trees and other structures get exposed to naked wires. Wherever possible, cables should be connected underground so that the elephants can be saved. Wireless systems are crucial. The early warning systems such as wireless tripwire system for undulating terrains as well as flat terrains have been succeeded to mitigate human-elephant conflict in states like Tamil Nadu. SMS, people can be sent SMS to alert them about the presence of elephants in the nearby area in advance after early detection. SMS or WhatsApp messaging system are helpful to prevent conflict and encounter with the elephants. Solar fencings are used generally in the village boundaries as well as on agricultural lands close to elephant habitats, so that after contact of elephants to this fencing, a mild electric shock to the elephant will avoid its entry into the village or agricultural fields. Then they find alternate migratory routes. Beehive fencing, elephants instinctively avoid beehives, and thus having beehives would benefit both the farmers as well as ecosystems, other than acting as a deterrent to elephants to move into areas where they may cause damage. Solid barriers of different types of natural and artificial barriers are constructed to guide elephants back into the natural habitat and also to minimize the conflict. Concrete barriers barricading additional walkways, elephant-proof trenches, hanging fences, rubble walls near the human habitation, trip alarm, sensory-based alarm, chili smoke, biofence like alternate cropping of citrus, chilies, ginger, etc., which are not liked by elephants around the main crop, can be very useful in minimizing the conflict and movement of elephants through human habitations. Study of animal behavior and management planning is very important, and very little has been done to study the animal behavior in the wild to understand the seasonal movements, and this would become important to study for any strategy and long-term plan to be effective. Radio collaring of elephants is most helpful in monitoring the movements of the elephants and understanding their ecological significance. Regeneration of native vegetation, which includes shrubs, trees, and other suitable species for elephants and water facilities, should be planted and maintained in the dry season in their habitats and corridors. Elephants do have the ability to dig soft soils and create water pools. However, this possibility will be useful when enough vegetation cover is provided for recharge of groundwater and increasing the water table. Artificial seeding of suitable grasses and herbs, shrubs, varieties in the corridors that pass by agricultural areas may be carried out so that there is enough green vegetation regenerated for consumption by the elephants as they move from one area to another, preventing the elephants from wandering into the agricultural fields. Fencing to guide elephants near railway tracks and highways to pass through an underpass or upper pass where possible, so that natural crossing points are used without a need for over construction along the railway tracks. Infrasonic sounds. All the adult elephants can make infrasonic calls and make contact with each other. Some researchers also assume that elephants use ultrasound of thunderstorms to find water resources during dry periods. So subsonic frequency systems of low frequency below 20 hertz along train lines can be used to mitigate the demise of elephants in railway tracks. That gets activated when a train is within 2 kilometers, so elephants are dissuaded from crossing the railway lines. Elephants avoid bees, so the bee sound can be played in this context, which has been found to be helpful in keeping elephants in Northeast India. Yeah, so that's a brief presentation from my side.